Vincent Romano grabbed Clara's chin, not rough but firm enough that she couldn't look away, and the second he tilted her face toward the light, every muscle in his body went rigid. The bruise, dark purple, shaped like fingers. Someone's fingers. "Who?" he said, his voice dropping so low it barely registered as sound. "The fuck hit you?" Clara's breath stopped. Her hands went cold, and the most dangerous man in Chicago looked like he was about to burn the whole world down to find out. If this story already has your heart pounding, subscribe right now, hit that bell, and drop your city in the comments below. I want to see just how far this story travels. Now let's get into it. The gates of the Romano estate opened at exactly 6:15 every morning. That was the rule. Not written down anywhere, not posted on any schedule. Just understood the way most things in Vincent Romano's world were understood. You didn't need a memo. You needed a pulse and enough sense to stay alive. Clara Vance had been arriving at those gates every morning for 11 months. 11 months of pressed uniforms, careful smiles, eyes that never lingered too long on anything. She had learned the rhythms of this house the way you learn the rhythms of a dangerous animal, quietly, carefully, with one eye always on the exit. This particular morning she was 12 minutes late. She told herself it didn't matter. 12 minutes was nothing. People were late all the time. But not here, not in this house, and not with him watching. She heard his voice before she saw him, which was always how it worked with Vincent Romano. His presence preceded him like a shift in air pressure, that particular stillness that settles over a room right before a storm. "You're late." 2 words, flat and quiet and somehow worse than shouting. Clara stopped just inside the entrance, her bag still on her shoulder, her coat not yet off. She had rehearsed this moment in the car. She had told herself she was ready. She was not ready. "I'm sorry," she said, keeping her eyes down. Traffic on Lakeshore was backed up past. "Look at me." She did not want to look at him. But you didn't say no to Vincent Romano. You learned that the same way you learned everything else in this house, fast and without being told twice. She lifted her eyes. He was standing at the far end of the entrance hall, still in the clothes he'd apparently worn all night, dark shirt jacket thrown over one arm, tie loosened at the collar. He hadn't slept. She could tell by the particular tightness around his jaw, the way his eyes were sharper than usual, instead of softer with rest. Vincent Romano on no sleep was not a man you wanted to disappoint. He was studying her the way he studied everything methodically without expression, as though she were a document he was translating from a foreign language. And then his eyes stopped moving. Clara felt it the moment they did. She felt the exact second he saw it. "Come here," he said. "Mr. Romano, I really should get started on Clara." His voice didn't rise. It never rose. That was the terrifying part. "Come here." She walked toward him. Each step felt like it cost her something. When she was close enough, he reached out and did the thing she had been dreading since she walked through the door. He cupped her chin gently, which somehow made it worse, and turned her face to the left toward the light coming through the high window. The concealer she had applied at 5 in the morning. 2 layers. The kind that was supposed to cover everything. It hadn't covered enough. His thumb stopped just below her cheekbone. He didn't touch the bruise. He just looked at it. The silence stretched out between them for so long that Clara could hear her own heartbeat. Then he let go of her face and took one careful step back, and the look in his eyes shifted into something she had never seen there before. Something controlled and cold and absolutely terrifyingly focused. "Who did this to you?" "I fell," she said immediately. She had practiced that too. "I fell on the stairs at home. I wasn't watching where I was going. Clean, simple, boring. The kind of thing nobody pushes back on." Vincent Romano pushed back on it. "You fell," he repeated. "Yes." "On your face." I hit the edge of the counter, actually. In my kitchen, I turned too fast and..." "Clara." He said her name the way you say a word when you want someone to understand you mean the opposite of what you're saying. "Stop," she stopped. "I have seen a lot of injuries in my life," he said, and there was something almost tired in his voice, something that wasn't anger, not yet. "I know the difference between the mark a counter leaves and the mark a hand leaves." Clara said nothing. "That," he said quietly, nodding toward the side of her face, "is a hand." The thing about working in this house for 11 months was that Clara had built herself a very specific kind of invisibility. She showed up. She worked hard. She spoke when spoken to, never more than necessary. She was efficient and quiet and gave Vincent Romano no reason whatsoever to look at her too closely. For 11 months it had worked perfectly, and in the space of 60 seconds it had come completely undone. "You don't have to answer that right now," Vincent said, and his voice had shifted again, quieter, almost careful, as though he understood that she was standing at the edge of something and one wrong word might send her over it. "But you will answer it." He turned away from her, then, which should have felt like relief, it didn't. "Go get changed," he said. "I'll have Maria bring you coffee. And when you're ready," he paused, "I'll be in my office." It was not a suggestion. Maria was the cook. She was 62 years old, built like a woman who had survived 3 husbands and several wars, and she had a gift for asking questions without appearing to ask anything at all. She set a mug down in front of Clara in the kitchen and said without looking up from the cutting board, "He's been up since 3. "Mr. Romano." "Mm-hmm." "Chop, chop." "Some business out on the south side, I don't ask." She finally glanced over and her eyes went immediately to Clara's face. She didn't say anything, but her chopping slowed down. "I'm fine," Clara said before Maria could speak. "I didn't say you weren't. I can hear you thinking it." Maria set down her knife, turned around, fully crossed her arms. "What happened?" "I fell." The older woman looked at her for a long moment, the way only someone who has seen real things can look at you. Not with pity, with recognition. "Clara," she said softly, "baby, who did this to you?" And for one terrible second, Clara almost told her. The words were right there, sitting in her throat. "Derek. His name is Derek. He found out where I work and he came to my apartment last night and he told me if I didn't." She swallowed it all down. "I need to go see Mr. Romano," she said instead. Maria didn't stop her, but as Clara left the kitchen, she heard the older woman say quietly to no one in particular, "Lord have mercy on whoever it was." Vincent's office was at the end of a long hallway on the second floor. Clara had been inside it exactly 4 times in 11 months, twice to deliver documents, once to clean when he was away, and once when he had called her in to ask very directly and without preamble whether she had noticed anything unusual about one of the other staff members. She had told him the truth that time. It seemed to be the only acceptable answer with him. She knocked. "Come in." He was at his desk, but he wasn't working. He was just sitting, one hand resting on the surface, looking at the door as she opened it. Waiting for her, Clara stepped inside and stood near the door, which she did not close behind her because leaving the door open was the only small act of control she had left. "Sit down," he said. She sat. He looked at her for a moment, and then he said something she did not expect. "How long has it been going on?" Clara's stomach dropped. "I don't know what you..." "Clara," there was that tone again. The one that wasn't angry, wasn't harsh, but was somehow completely immovable. "I'm not asking you to prove it. I'm not asking you to file a report or press charges or do anything that scares you. I'm asking you a simple question, and I want you to answer it honestly." He paused. "How long has someone been hurting you?" The room felt like it tilted slightly. She started, stopped, looked at her hands. "That's not something I wanted to talk about." "I understand that," he said. "Talk about it anyway." She didn't answer right away. What she did was look up at him, really look at him, and try to figure out what he wanted. In her experience, men who asked questions like that wanted something. They wanted gratitude, or they wanted leverage, or they wanted the particular power that comes from knowing someone else's most vulnerable thing. Vincent Romano's face gave her nothing to work with. "I don't want your help," she said finally, quietly, but firmly. "That's not what I asked." "I know what you asked, and I'm telling you that whatever this is," she gestured vaguely toward her face, "it's handled. It's my business. It has nothing to do with this house or with you, and I would appreciate it if we could just..." "Who is he?" The question was like a door slamming. Clara went very still. Something moved across Vincent's face. Something quick and calculated, the look of a man who has just found the corner of a thread and knows that if he pulls it carefully, the whole thing will unravel. "So there is a he said. She had walked right into it. She pressed her lips together and said nothing. "Is it someone you're involved with?" Silence. "Someone from your past?" Still nothing. "Clara, He leaned forward slightly, elbows on the desk, and his voice dropped into something very quiet, very controlled, very serious. I need you to understand something. I have been running this organization for 12 years. I have sat across from federal prosecutors, rival bosses, men who have tried to put me in the ground, and I can tell without any difficulty whatsoever when someone is hiding something from me. He paused. You are hiding something from me. Everyone is hiding something, she said. That's true, he said. But most people who work for me aren't coming in looking like someone used their face as a practice round. She flinched. She couldn't help it. His expression shifted immediately. Something crossed his face that looked almost like regret. I'm sorry, he said, and it sounded like it cost him something to say it. He stopped. That was a bad way to say it. Clara stared at him. Vincent Romano had just apologized to her. In 11 months, she had never once heard him apologize to anyone. The silence that followed was different from the silences before it. Less like a wall between them, more like an open space. Clara became aware of the sound of her own breathing, of the clock on his desk, of the distant noise of the house settling around them. His name is Derek, she said. She didn't plan to say it. It came out the way things come out when you've been holding them too long, suddenly, involuntarily, like a breath you forgot you were holding. Vincent didn't move. Derek Vance, she continued, her voice flat and careful. He was my husband. We've been divorced for 3 years. And he doesn't take no very well. She looked at her hands again. He never did. Vincent was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was carefully neutral. Where is he now? I don't know. It was a lie. She knew exactly where Derek was. She knew because he had told her last night, standing in her kitchen, with that smile of his, the one that never reached his eyes, telling her exactly where he was staying and exactly what he would do if she didn't comply with what he wanted. She knew because he had Lily, her daughter, her 7-year-old, the only person in the world she would die for, but that she was not ready to say out loud. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Clara, Vincent said, and something in his voice made her look up. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't entirely read. Whatever you're not telling me, and I know there's more you don't have to tell me right now. She waited. But he doesn't get to do this again, he said. She almost laughed. The sound that came out of her instead was something between a farewell and a saw quickly controlled. You don't know him, she said. He doesn't know me either, Vincent replied. Perfectly even, perfectly quiet. And for the first time in a very long time, Clara felt something she hadn't expected to feel. Not hope, not exactly, but something close to it, something adjacent to it, something dangerous. She went back to work that morning. What else was she supposed to do? She cleaned the East Wing. She changed the linens in the guest rooms. She helped Maria with the mid-morning coffee service for the men who came and went from Vincent's office. Hard-faced men with quiet voices who smelled like cigarettes and cold air, and decisions she didn't want to know about. She moved through the house the way she always did. Quietly, efficiently, invisible. Except she wasn't invisible anymore. She could feel it. That thing had shifted between her and Vincent, and she didn't know how to shift it back. At 11:31, of Vincent's men, a tall, thin one named Sal, who had never once acknowledged her existence before today, stopped her in the hallway. Boss wants to know if you need anything, he said. He said it with the specific inflection of a man who has been told to say something that is well beneath his dignity. Clara looked at him. Excuse me? If you need anything. Sal looked like he was experiencing a mild but persistent form of suffering. Food or whatever, he said to ask. She stared at Sal for a long moment. I'm fine, she said. Sal looked deeply relieved to have an answer and walked away immediately. Clara stood there in the hallway and thought very seriously about what she had set in motion by saying Derek's name out loud. Her phone buzzed at noon. She was in the laundry room when it happened, and she looked at the screen, and the number was one she didn't have saved but recognized anyway. The way you recognize the number of someone who has called you enough times from enough different phones that your body has learned to read it before your brain does. She answered because she had learned the hard way that not answering was always worse. Clara, Derek's voice was warm, friendly. It always was. That was the part people never understood about men like him. They didn't sound like monsters. They sounded like the most reasonable people in the room. How's work? She stepped further back into the laundry room and kept her voice very flat and very steady. What do you want, Derek? Just checking in, making sure you got to work, okay? You looked a little unsteady when I left last night. I was worried about you. The audacity of it was almost impressive. Don't call me at work, she said. Now, Clara, I mean it. Don't call me here. I'll call you wherever I like, he said still, in that warm, reasonable voice. We've talked about this. You know how this works. You do what we discussed, everything is fine. You start getting ideas, calling people, talking to people who don't need to know your business. A pause. Well, you know what happens. Her throat tightened. I want to talk to her. She's fine. Derek, I want to hear her voice right now, or we have nothing to discuss. A longer pause this time. She could hear him deciding, could almost feel him weighing it, deciding how much to give her to keep her compliant. A small sound on the line. Rustling. And then Mama, Lily. Clara turned to face the wall and pressed her hand flat against it, the same way she had when she was in labor, needing something solid, needing to feel that the world was still real. Hey, baby, she whispered. Hey, are you okay? I'm okay. We watched a movie last night. Daddy made popcorn. Daddy. The word hit her like something physical. Derek had not been Lily's daddy in 3 years. He had been a stranger, a ghost, a thing they didn't talk about. And now he had her daughter calling him daddy again. I'll see you soon, okay? Clara said, keeping her voice even through what felt like a massive effort of will. Real soon, I promise. More rustling, then Derek again. See, he said pleasantly. She's fine, happy as can be. All you have to do is your part, Clara, and this all works out. Another pause, and his voice softened into something that sounded almost like concern. I don't want to make things hard for you. You know that, right? I just need you to do this one thing. One small thing, and then everyone goes home. She said nothing. Clara. I heard you, she said. She ended the call. She stood in the laundry room for 30 seconds, possibly more, her hands still flat against the wall, her breath coming in very careful, very controlled measures. Then she straightened up, smoothed her uniform, and walked back out into the house. She almost made it through the afternoon. She was in the hallway outside the kitchen at 3:45 when she heard voices inside Vincent's office. The door was partially open, which was unusual, which meant he either didn't care who heard or had forgotten to close it, and given that Vincent Romano forgot nothing, she was going to go with option one. She wasn't trying to listen. She genuinely wasn't. But then she heard her name. The Maid, said a voice she recognized as Tommy Ritchie, Vincent's second-in-command. You're asking about the Maid. I'm asking you to find out who Derek Vance is, Vincent said. Perfectly calm. That's what I said. Vinny, come on. Tommy, just the name, nothing else. And Clara, standing in the hallway, could feel the silence that followed. Yeah, Tommy said. Okay, I'll look into it. Tonight, Vincent said. Clara pressed herself flat against the wall beside the door and closed her eyes. He was already looking. He was already pulling the thread. And she had 3 hours, maybe 4, before he found the part she hadn't told him. The part that would change everything. The part about Lily. She was putting on her coat at 5:30 when Vincent appeared at the end of the hall. I'll have someone drive you, he said. She stopped. I take the bus. Not tonight. Mr. Romano. Clara, he looked at her steadily. Let me have someone drive you, that's all I'm asking. She wanted to say no. She wanted very badly to say no. Okay, she said. He nodded once. Marco will be out front. He turned to go. Vincent, she said. He stopped, turned back, and she realized it was the first time she had used his first name in 11 months. Why are you doing this? She asked. He held her gaze for a long, quiet moment, and then he said, because someone should have been doing it a long time ago. He walked back down the hall. She heard his office door close. Clara stood alone in the entrance of the estate, her coat half on her hands, not quite steady. Derek had Lily. Vincent was looking into Derek. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, Clara Vance, who had spent 3 years being very, very careful, had run completely out of careful. She walked outside to where Marco was waiting. The night air hit her face cold and sharp. And somewhere across the city, her daughter was sleeping in a place she didn't know with a man she was terrified of. Clara got in the car. She had until morning to decide what to do next. Orchestrated Vietnamese story continuation with dramatic pacing and psychological depth. Orchestrated Vietnamese story continuation with dramatic pacing and psychological depth. Marco didn't talk much, which Clara appreciated. He drove with both hands on the wheel and his eyes forward, and he didn't ask her a single question the entire ride, which told her that Vincent had either instructed him not to, or that Marco was simply the kind of man who understood when silence was the only decent thing to offer. She watched the city move past the window and tried to think clearly. The problem was that clear thinking required a kind of emotional distance she didn't currently have access to. Every time she tried to line the facts up in a row, Lily's voice cut through everything, Mama small and sleepy and unbothered, which was somehow the most frightening part. Lily didn't know to be frightened. Lily was 7 years old and thought this was some kind of extended visit, thought Derek was just her daddy being nice, thought the popcorn in the movie meant something good was happening. Clara knew better. She had lived with Derek for 6 years. She knew exactly what it meant when he was being nice. It meant he needed something. Marco pulled up in front of her building at 6:10 and waited engine running while she got out. She turned back before she closed the door. "Thank you," she said. Marco nodded once. "I'll be here tomorrow morning at 6. "That's not—" She stopped, reconsidered. "Okay." She closed the door and went inside. Her apartment was on the 4th floor end of the hall, the one with the window that faced the alley instead of the street, which she had chosen specifically because it was harder to see into. She had made that choice 3 years ago when she first moved here, and at the time she had told herself she was being paranoid. She stood in the center of her living room with her coat still on and looked at the kitchen counter where Derek had stood last night, that smile on his face. And she thought about the specific things he had said and what he had asked her to do and what he had promised would happen if she didn't. And then she picked up her phone. She didn't call Vincent. She wasn't ready for that. Instead, she called her sister Renee, who lived in Evanston and who knew more of the story than anyone else did, which still wasn't all of it. Renee picked up on the second ring. "Hey, how are you?" "I need you to listen to me," Clara said, "and I need you not to ask a lot of questions." A pause. "Clara." "Renee, please." "Okay, I'm listening." "Derek has Lily." She said it fast, the way you rip off a bandage. "He's had her since Sunday. He came to my place last night and he told me—" She stopped, steadied herself. "He told me what he wants, and I need to know if you've heard from her. Any texts, any calls from a number you don't recognize, anything." The silence on the other end was the kind that has weight to it. "Oh my God! Clara, have you called the police?" "No." "Why not? You need to call Renee." She kept her voice very level. "If I call the police, Derek will know within the hour. You know how he is. You know the people he knows. The second a report gets filed, he'll—" She stopped. "I can't risk it, not with Lily there." "Then what are you going to do?" That was the question, wasn't it? "I don't know yet," she said, "but I need you to stay by your phone, okay? Whatever happens in the next few days, I need you reachable." "You're scaring me." "Good," Clara said. "Be scared. That's the right response." She ended the call and sat down on the couch, still in her coat, and for exactly 90 seconds she allowed herself to feel everything. The fear, the exhaustion, the particular humiliation of knowing that she had let this happen, that she had been careful for 3 years, and Derek had still found a way in, had still found the one thing she couldn't protect. 90 seconds. Then she stood up. She needed to think about what Derek wanted. He wanted information. Specifically, he wanted the schedule, Vincent Romano's schedule. When he left the house, which routes his cars took, which nights he had security, and which nights the team was smaller. Derek, it turned out, was in business with someone who wanted that information. Someone who apparently believed that knowing when a mafia boss was most exposed was valuable enough to be worth all of this. He wanted her to be his inside person. He wanted her to trade her employer's life for her daughter's. The sick logic of it was almost elegant. Derek had always been smart. She had never made the mistake of thinking otherwise. She was still sitting with all of this when her phone rang again. Unknown number. Different from Derek's. She almost didn't answer. She answered. "Mr. Vance." The voice on the other end was unfamiliar male, businesslike, completely neutral. "This is a message from Mr. Romano's office. He'd like to meet with you tomorrow morning, 30 minutes before your shift begins." 6:30. Clara went still. About what? He didn't specify. A pause. Will that work for you? She thought about Tommy Ricci's voice through that half-open door. I'll look into it. Tonight. Tonight. That had been this afternoon. Which meant that by 6:30 tomorrow morning, Vincent Romano would likely know more about Derek Vance than she had told him. Maybe significantly more. Yes, she said. That works. The line went dead. She put her phone face down on the cushion beside her and stared at the ceiling. The clock on the wall read 7:12. Somewhere across the city, Derek was sitting wherever he was sitting, comfortable, confident, holding her daughter like a card in a hand he thought he'd already won. Clara pressed her thumb and forefinger against the bridge of her nose and made herself think. If Vincent had found things out and she had to operate as though he had, because Vincent Romano did not do things halfway, then tomorrow morning's meeting was not going to be a casual conversation. He was going to know about Derek's record. He might know about the divorce, the restraining order she'd filed, and then drop the reports that had gone nowhere. He might even know about the incident 3 years ago that had finally made her leave. What he would not know not yet was Lily. And if he found out about Lily through Tommy's digging instead of through her own voice, if he walked into that meeting tomorrow, already knowing it would change things. She didn't know exactly how, but she understood instinctively that there was a difference between telling Vincent Romano something yourself and letting him find it out without you. One of those things built trust. The other one looked like deception. She couldn't afford to look like she was deceiving him. She picked up her phone. She put it back down. She picked it up again and found the number for the Romano Estate's main line, the one she'd memorized in her first week, because you memorize things like that when you work for someone like him. It rang twice. Romano residence? This is Clara Vance, she said. I need to speak with Mr. Romano. A brief pause. One moment. The hold music was something classical that she didn't recognize. It played for approximately 45 seconds and then stopped. Clara, Vincent's voice, direct focused, already present in a way that told her he'd been waiting for this call or something like it. I need to tell you something, as she said. And I need to tell you now before tomorrow. Because I think by tomorrow you might already know, and I'd rather, she stopped. I need you to hear it from me. A short silence. Go ahead. She closed her eyes. Derek has my daughter. The silence that followed was the longest 10 seconds she had ever experienced. How long? Vincent asked. His voice had not changed, not in pitch, not in tone, but there was something underneath it now, something compressed and very, very still. Since Sunday. It's Wednesday. I know. You've known since Sunday that your ex-husband took your child, Vincent said, and you came to work every day and said nothing. He told me if I told anyone, I understand what he told you. He wasn't angry, that was the strange part. He sounded like a man who was maintaining control through a significant act of will, and she didn't know what was on the other side of that control, and she wasn't sure she wanted to. Clara, he said, what does he want? She had debated this part. She had gone back and forth on it in her head for the last hour, turning it over, looking at it from every angle. He wants information, she said, about you, your schedule, your security arrangements. He's working with someone I don't know who wants to know when you are most exposed. Another silence. This one felt different, colder. He's using Lily to turn you into an asset, Vincent said. Yes. And you were going to give him what he wanted? No. She said it without hesitation because that much at least was true. She had never intended to give Derek anything. What she had been doing was trying to figure out how to get Lily back without handing Vincent over to people who wanted to hurt him. I was trying to find another way. By yourself. I didn't have a lot of options that I could see. You could have come to me on Sunday, he said. I know that. She pressed her hand over her eyes. I know that now. I didn't know. I wasn't sure. She stopped. You're my employer, Mr. Romano. I didn't know if a missing 7-year-old was something you'd want to be involved in. She's your daughter, he said quietly. Like that was the only thing that needed to be said. Like the calculus was that simple. Clara said nothing because her throat had done something inconvenient. What's your daughter's name? He asked. Lily. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. Her name is Lily. How old? 7. She heard him exhale, a long, slow breath. The kind of breath that is also a decision being made. Does Derek know you've told me any of this? No. Good. His voice shifted back into something operational, deliberate. Don't call him. Don't answer if he calls tonight. If you get a call from Lily, answer it. Keep her calm. Don't let her know anything is wrong. Okay. I'm sending someone to your building tonight. Vincent. Not to watch you, he said, and she realized she must have tensed up because somehow he'd anticipated exactly what she was worried about. To watch the street. I want to know if Derek or anyone connected to him comes near your building. She exhaled. Okay. Get some sleep if you can, he said. I'll see you at 6:30. The line went quiet. Clara sat in her coat in the dark of her apartment and thought about the particular strangeness of being told to sleep by a man who ran the Chicago Mafia. She didn't sleep, but she tried. It was something at least. The morning came gray and early the way Chicago mornings do in that particular stretch of the year when spring keeps threatening to arrive and keeps not quite managing it. Clara was in the car with Marco at 5:55. She watched the streets move past and practiced being steady. She was not especially steady, but she was practiced. Vincent was already in his office when she arrived. He was standing behind his desk, which was different from the sitting she'd seen before, and Tommy Ricci was there standing near the window with a look on his face that told her the night had been productive. Close the door, Vincent said. She closed it. He looked at her for a moment and then he said, sit down, please. And the please was something she had never heard from him before, and it did something unexpected to her composure. She sat. Tommy, Vincent said. Tommy opened a folder actual paper which felt deliberately old-fashioned in a way she suspected was intentional. Derek Allen Vance, 41. 2 prior arrests, 1 conviction assault, 2019 served 8 months. 3 restraining orders filed, all withdrawn before court dates. He glanced at Clara not unkindly. The pattern on the withdrawals matches the same cycle. Filed, then dropped. Filed, dropped. Clara kept her face very still. He's currently working as a contractor for a man named Paul Stein, Tommy continued. Stein runs a gambling operation out of the near north side, small time mostly, but he's been making moves trying to get bigger, and getting bigger in Stein's world apparently involves acquiring information about... Tommy paused and there was something dry in it. This household. Vincent was watching her. You knew about Stein. I knew there was someone Derek was working with. I didn't know a name. He didn't tell you who was pulling the strings. Derek doesn't share information unless it serves him. Vincent nodded slowly. Tommy closed the folder. He looked at Vincent. Some kind of wordless exchange passed between them, the kind that only happens between the 2 people who have been working together long enough that conversation has become optional. Tommy left. The door closed behind him and Vincent came around the desk and sat on the edge of it, which put him closer to her, and he looked at her with that steady, unreadable expression of his. I need to ask you something, he said, and I need you to answer it honestly. Okay. Are you frightened of me? She looked at him. Really looked at him. The question had caught her completely off guard, which she suspected was intentional. Yes, she said. Sometimes. He nodded as though that was the acceptable answer. Good, that's reasonable. He crossed his arms lightly. I need you to understand something. Whatever Derek Vance is planning, whatever Stein is planning, it's not going to work. Not because I have an operation to protect, though I do, but because he took a child to do it. Something moved across his face. That's not something I'm willing to let stand. You can't just... She stopped herself. I can't just... What? Go after him. He has Lily. If he feels cornered... He won't feel cornered, Vincent said. He'll feel like everything is going according to plan. Right up until it isn't. He paused. I'm going to need you to do something that's going to be very hard. What? I need you to call Derek today and tell him you're in. Clara stared at him. You want me to tell him I'll help him? I want you to buy us 48 hours, Vincent said. Alles. That's all. Tell him you need a little more time to get access to the right information. Make it believable you're worried about getting caught. You need to be careful. He'll believe it because it's consistent with how you operate and because he needs you to be his asset. His eyes were steady on hers. Can you do that? The terrifying thing was that she could. She had been managing Derek's expectations for 6 years. She knew exactly how to give him just enough to keep him patient. "What happens in 48 hours?" she asked. "I find out where Lily is. And then, Vincent said, and his voice was quiet and completely without drama, "She comes home." Clara looked at the floor. She was doing that thing again. That thing where the words were sitting right there in her throat. Except this time what was there wasn't more secrets. It was something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Something that felt uncomfortably like trust. "He'll know," she said. "Eventually, he'll know I went to you." "Yes," Vincent said, "he will. And that doesn't worry you, that he has people who, Clara." He waited until she looked at him. "Paul Stein is a man who runs an illegal card game out of a restaurant basement and thinks that makes him formidable. He has been a mild inconvenience to me for approximately 3 years. He paused. "Derek works for Paul Stein." She understood what he was telling her. She understood the specific mathematics of it, what Paul Stein was, what Vincent Romano was, and what the distance between those two things meant in practical terms. "Okay," she said. "Okay," he repeated, not triumphant, not satisfied, just quiet. She stood up. She was almost at the door when he spoke again. "Clara." She turned. "What does Lily like?" he asked. She blinked. When she comes home," he said. Was she like? Movies, food, whatever. I want to make sure there's something here for her." Clara stood at his office door and looked at Vincent Romano. This man she had been afraid of. This man she still didn't entirely understand. This man who had just asked her what her daughter liked, as though it were the most natural question in the world. "She likes blueberry pancakes," Clara said, "and she's obsessed with dogs. She's been asking for one for 2 years. Something almost imperceptible moved at the corner of Vincent's mouth. "I'll talk to Marco," he said. "He has a retriever." Clara walked out of the office and down the hall and didn't let herself feel anything until she was in the linen closet on the second floor with the door closed. Then she pressed both hands over her mouth and took 3 very long, very shaky breaths. Lily was coming home. She had to believe that. She had to make that phone call to Derek and sound calm and sound compliant and give him just enough to keep him still for 48 hours. She was terrified. She had never in her life been more terrified. And underneath the terror burning through it like something she hadn't expected and couldn't quite name was the first real thing she had felt in 3 years. She picked up her phone. She found Derek's number. She called. He answered on the first ring. "Clara," he said, warm and expectant. "I was wondering when I'd hear from you." "I'm in," she said. Her voice was perfectly steady. "But I need a few more days to do this right. I can't rush it. If I get caught, it's over for both of us." A pause, then, "I knew you'd come around." She closed her eyes. "I just want my daughter back, Derek." "And you'll have her," he said. "Soon as we're done. You have my word." She ended the call and stood in the linen closet in the dark and thought about what his word had ever been worth. What it had cost her over 6 years to learn that it was worth exactly nothing. 48 hours. She just needed 48 hours. Orchestrated Vietnamese narrative, part 3 with dramatic pacing and emotional intensity. Orchestrated Vietnamese narrative, part 3 with dramatic pacing and emotional intensity. The 48 hours started the moment she hung up on Derek. Clara knew in the specific way that people who have survived difficult things know that the next 2 days were going to be the longest of her life. Not because of the waiting she was used to waiting had made a kind of art form out of it, but because of the particular torture of having to act normal while everything underneath was moving. She went back to work. She folded laundry. She helped Maria prepare lunch. She smiled at Sal when he passed her in the hallway, which startled him so visibly that she almost felt sorry for him. Normal. Everything normal. At 2 in the afternoon, Tommy appeared at the kitchen doorway and said without preamble, "Boss wants you. 5 minutes." She found Vincent in his office with 2 other men she didn't recognize. Both of them large, both of them with the particular quality of stillness that came not from calm, but from training. They left when she entered, which told her something about how Vincent had framed this meeting to them. "Sit," he said. She sat. He put a photograph on the desk in front of her. Printed, not digital, on plain paper. "Is this Derek?" She looked at it. Her stomach tightened. "Yes. Where did you get this?" "Tommy pulled security footage from your building. Derek was in the parking garage Monday morning. We tracked him from there." He pointed to a second photo beside the first. This is the car he's using. Registered to a woman named Sandra Pulaski. She's Paul Stein's girlfriend. He's using their vehicles. Clara studied the photos. Have you found where he's staying? We have a neighborhood, Vincent said. We're narrowing it down. He leaned back slightly. I need to ask you something about Lily. Does she have a phone, anything with location services? She has a kid's tablet. I put a tracking app on it last year. She didn't know about it. She uses it to video call me. She stopped. But Derek would have taken it from her. Would he have turned it off? He's smart enough to know about tracking. He probably destroyed it. She paused. Or he would have, unless he didn't think I had the nerve to actually use it. Vincent watched her. Do you have access to the app right now? She had it on her phone. She had looked at it 3 times since Sunday, and each time the device had shown as offline, and each time it felt like being told the same bad news over and over. She pulled out her phone, opened the app, and for the 3rd time since Sunday, prepared herself for the offline indicator. The dot was green. Clara's breath stopped. It's on, she said. Her voice came out strange. Vincent, it's on. He must not have found it, or she hid it somewhere, or she was already turning the phone toward him, hand not quite steady. The green dot was pulsing, alive. Vincent was on his feet before she finished the sentence. He came around the desk and looked at the screen for exactly 2 seconds, then turned and opened the office door. Tommy? Tommy materialized immediately as though he had been waiting right outside. Yeah. Get Caruso, now. Tommy was gone. Vincent turned back to Clara. His expression was focused, precise, the way she imagined surgeons looked when something they'd been waiting for finally became possible. Can you share the location from that app? Yes, her hands were shaking. She was doing it, already copying the coordinates, sending them to him. His phone buzzed. He looked at it. Good. Send it to this number too. He put a contact in front of her, a name that was just a first name, Ray. He's the one who will go in. She sent it. Then she looked up at him. I want to go. No, she's my daughter, Vincent. Which is exactly why you're not going, he said, and his voice was firm but not unkind. If Derek sees you with my people, he'll know it's over. He'll move her before we get anywhere near. He paused. The best thing you can do for Lily right now is stay here. Stay calm. Let my people work. Every instinct she had screamed against it. But she had spent enough time in the business of survival to know the difference between instinct that was useful and instinct that would get someone hurt. Okay, she said. The word cost her. She's going to be all right, he said. He said it like a statement of fact, not a reassurance, like it was simply a thing that was going to be true. She wanted so badly to believe him. Her phone rang. She looked at the screen. Derek. Vincent saw it too. His eyes went to her face immediately. He's not supposed to call until tomorrow, she said, and even she could hear the controlled panic underneath her voice. Answer it, Vincent said quietly. He moved to stand just slightly behind her, close enough that she could feel him there without seeing him. You're fine. You called him this morning. You're his person on the inside. There's no reason for you to be anything other than calm. She answered. Hey, she said. Steady. God, she was steady. Clara. Derek's voice was different from this morning. Not warm. Not the salesman-friendly tone he'd used before. This was the other voice. The one she had learned over 6 years to be very careful around. I need to ask you something. Her grip on the phone tightened. Sure. Did you talk to anyone today? The room did not move. Clara did not move. Behind her, she could sense rather than see Vincent going completely still. About what? She asked. About me. About our arrangement. A pause, and the pause had weight in it. Because I got a call from someone today asking questions about me. Somebody who does not as a rule ask questions about people like me. She made herself take a breath before she answered. I don't know what you're talking about, Derek. Someone from the Romano organization has been asking around him, he said. You wouldn't know anything about that. Romano asks about everybody, she said, and she was impressed distantly by how even her voice was. He had one of his guys look into me when I started working there. He runs background on all his staff. That's just how he operates. The silence stretched. Is that right? Derek said. That's right. Another pause, longer this time. Clara counted her own heartbeats. All right, he said finally. Keep your head down. And Clara, don't make me nervous. You know what happens when I get nervous. The line went dead. Clara lowered the phone slowly. She was aware that her hand was trembling, and she was aware that Vincent was watching her, and she made herself turn around and look at him. He knows something, she said. He suspects something, Vincent corrected. There's a difference. But something had shifted in his expression, a new sharpness, a recalculation. Caruso needs to move tonight, not tomorrow. If Derek suspects anything, and Caruso goes in and it goes wrong, it won't go wrong. You can't guarantee that. No, he admitted, and the admission surprised her. Oh. But Caruso has done this 12 times. In worse situations than this one, he held her gaze. I would not send him if I didn't trust him completely. She looked at him for a long moment, and then she said the thing she'd been thinking since this morning. Why does this matter to you? She's not your child. I'm your maid. Why are you doing any of this? The questions sat between them. Vincent was quiet for long enough that she thought he wasn't going to answer. And then he said very quietly, when I was 8 years old, my mother left the house one night and didn't come back for 3 days. When she came back, she had 2 broken ribs and a fractured wrist. He paused. Nobody helped her. Not one person. Not a neighbor, not a cop, not anyone who knew what was happening. His voice was even controlled, but underneath it was something old and very heavy. I have thought about that for 33 years. Clara said nothing. So, he said, straightening slightly, pulling himself back to the present, that is why. She understood then that this was not charity. This was not the powerful man extending a favor to the help. This was something personal and unresolved and real, and it changed the shape of everything she'd been thinking about him. Thank you, she said. It was inadequate. She said it anyway. His phone buzzed. He looked at it, and his expression shifted immediately into something operational. Caruso has a visual on the building. The tablet signal is coming from the 3rd floor. Clara felt the world tilt slightly. Can he see anything? Oh, honey. Not yet. He was already typing a response. He's positioning. The next hour was the worst of Clara's life, and that was a significant claim given the competition. She sat in Vincent's office because he didn't suggest she leave, and she didn't offer to. Maria brought coffee that neither of them touched. Tommy came in twice with updates that were mostly logistical and meant nothing to Clara except that they meant something to Vincent, who would nod and respond in short clipped sentences and then look at his phone again. At 4:17, Clara's phone lit up with a video call. Not Derek, not Renee, the number from the tablet. Her hand shook so badly that she almost dropped the phone. Answer it, Vincent said immediately. She did. The screen was dark for a moment. Then Lily's face appeared close to the camera, way too close, the way kids hold phones. Her eyes were wide and her hair was messy, and she was whispering, Mama, I found my tablet. I hid it under the mattress. Clara pressed her free hand over her mouth. She heard very distantly Vincent moving, stepping back to give her space. Hey, baby, she managed. Hey, are you okay? Are you hurt? I'm not hurt. Daddy's downstairs. He doesn't know I have it. Lily's voice was very small and very careful in the way that 7-year-olds get when they're trying to be grown up. Mama, I want to go home. I know, sweetheart. I know. She was crying silently the way she'd learned to cry without making any sound at all. You're going to come home very, very soon. Okay, tonight maybe. Tonight, maybe, but I need you to listen to me. Can you do that? Yes. I need you to stay in your room and keep that tablet hidden and do not let anyone know you have it. Can you do that for me? Yes. And Lily, if anyone who you don't know comes to the room and they tell you they're going to take you to Mama, you go with them. Okay, you don't be scared, you go. A tiny pause. Is this like when you told me about stranger danger? Even through everything, Clara almost smiled. This is the exception to that rule. The people who come will be safe. I promise. Okay, Mama. I love you so much. I love you more. Impossible. It was their thing. They'd said it 10,000 times. Stay hidden, baby. I'll see you soon. She ended the call because she couldn't afford to risk the call going long and Derek finding the tablet. Then she put the phone down on the desk and put her face in her hands and stopped trying to hold anything together for approximately 20 seconds. She felt rather than heard Vincent move to stand closer. He didn't touch her. He didn't say anything immediately. He just stood there, present, like a wall between her and everything outside. "She's smart," he said finally. "She's the smartest person I know," Clara said into her hands. "And she's 7 years old and she's been sleeping under the same roof as Derek for 4 days. Caruso is in position," Vincent said. His phone was in his hand. "He heard the call. He's ready to move as soon as we give the word." Clara looked up. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and took one breath and then another, and then she said, "Give the word." He made the call. 12 seconds. That was how long the call lasted. Vincent said Caruso's name, and then he said, "Go." And then he hung up, and the waiting started again. But this time it was different. This time it had an end point that she could feel closing in. She stomached up. She couldn't sit. "What if Derek is in the room with her?" she asked. "Caruso will handle it." Heish, Vincent looked at her steadily. "You don't want the details on that one." She stopped asking. The minutes passed the way minutes pass when every single one of them matters slowly, painfully, each one requiring something. At 4:41, Tommy knocked twice and opened the door without waiting. He looked at Vincent, not at Clara, but Clara had learned to read the subtext of this house, and what she read on Tommy's face was not bad news. "She's out," Tommy said. Clara's knees went soft. She sat down immediately hard back in the chair. "She's safe," Vincent asked. "Safe. Caruso's got her. She's asking for her mother." Tommy paused and something crossed his face that might on a different man's face have been called tenderness. Apparently she fought him, bit his hand. Clara made a sound that was half laugh and half sob. "That's my kid," she said. Her voice was completely destroyed. "Carr is bringing her here," Tommy said. 20 minutes. He left. The door closed. Vincent looked at Clara. She looked at Vincent, and then she said, because someone had to say it, "What about Derek?" Something moved across Vincent's face. Something deliberate and very controlled. "Caruso left before Derek came back upstairs," he said carefully. "So Derek doesn't know yet what happened." "But he will," Clara said. "As soon as he goes up to check on her." "Yes. And then he'll know it was me." "Yes. And he'll come for me." She said it flatly without drama. Just a fact she was naming them out loud. "He'll try," Vincent said. The distinction was very clear in his voice. "I'm not going to spend the rest of my life hiding," she said. "I'm not going to let Lily grow up in a house with bars on the windows because her father is—" She stopped. "I'm done hiding. I've been hiding for 3 years. I'm done." Vincent was watching her carefully. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want this to end," she said. "Properly, I want Derek." She stopped again, considered her words. "I want him to not be a problem anymore. I don't know what that looks like in your world. I don't know what you can and can't." She looked at him directly. "I'm asking you to help me end this." The room was very quiet. "I want to be clear about something," Vincent said after a moment. "I'm going to find Derek Vance. That was already decided. But I need you to understand whatever happens next, whatever I do, it changes things. Between you and me, between you and this house, you understand that she understood. She understood completely. She was asking Vincent Romano to go to war on her behalf, and she was asking with her eyes open, knowing what he was knowing, what that meant. "I understand," she said. He nodded once, and then his phone rang. He looked at the screen, and for the first time since she had known him, something flickered across his face that she couldn't immediately name. He answered. Listened for 4 seconds. His jaw went tight. "Say that again," he said. He listened. "When?" Another pause. "How many?" He hung up and looked at Clara, and now she could name the expression on his face. It was the look of a man who has just discovered that the game changed while he wasn't watching. "Derek didn't go back upstairs," Vincent said. His voice was absolutely even. "He left the building 40 minutes ago, right around the time you called Lily." Clara went cold. "He knew," she said. "He figured it out before Caruso even went in." "Apparently. Then where is he now?" Vincent looked at her for exactly 1 second. 1 single second where she could see him deciding how much to tell her. "He's on his way here," Vincent said. "He has 4 men with him." Clara stood up. Lily is in a car coming to this address, she said. Yes. And Derek is also coming to this address. Yes. They stared at each other. How long? She asked. Caruso's car is 12 minutes out, he said. Tommy's tracking Derek. He's 15 minutes. 3 minutes. 3 minutes between her daughter arriving safely and her ex-husband arriving with 4 armed men. Tommy, Vincent's voice suddenly was not the controlled quiet she was used to. It was a command, full-throated, immediate. The door opened before the echo of his voice had died. I heard, Tommy said. He already had his phone out. I'm on it. Clara stood in the center of Vincent Romano's office, 3 minutes of margin between safety and catastrophe, and realized that the next quarter of an hour was going to decide everything. She thought about Derek's voice on the phone this morning. Don't make me nervous. Too late for that now. She looked at Vincent. Tell me what to do, she said. Orchestrated Part 4. Narrative Continuation Meeting, Vietnamese Storytelling Specifications. Orchestrated Part 4 Narrative Continuation Meeting, Vietnamese Storytelling Specifications. Stay in this office, Vincent said. Do not open that door for anyone except me or Tommy, not Maria, not Marco, not anyone else. Vincent. Clara. He looked at her the way he had looked at her that first morning in the entrance hall. Steady, immovable, like a man who has made a decision and intends to see it through. Lily is 12 minutes away. I need you in one piece when she gets here. That means you stay in this room. She wanted to fight it, too. Every part of her wanted to fight it. Okay, she said. He moved to the door and then stopped, hand on the frame, and without turning around, he said, Lock it behind me. He was gone. She locked the door. Then she stood in the center of his office alone, with 12 minutes on a clock she couldn't see, and she did the only thing she could do. She listened. The house changed around her in a way she had never felt before. In 11 months, she had learned its rhythms, the way it breathed in the morning, the particular cadence of the afternoon, the specific quiet of the evening, when the men went home and only the night staff remained. She knew this house. She had never heard it like this. Voices low and fast moving through the hallway outside. Footsteps, not the measured, unhurried footsteps she was used to, but the footsteps of people who had somewhere to be and needed to be there now. A door somewhere below. 2 doors. Car engines in the driveway more than usual. Vincent was mobilizing. She looked at her phone. 4:51. The car with Lily was 7 minutes out if the timing held. Derek was 10 minutes if the timing held. She called the number Vincent had given her for Caruso's car. It rang 3 times, then a man's voice, rough, businesslike. Yeah. This is Clara Vance. I'm calling about the little girl. A brief pause. She's here. She's okay. Can I? A rustling and then Mama. Clara sat down on the floor. She didn't plan to. Her legs simply made the decision for her. Hey, baby, she said. Hey, you doing okay? The man who came to get me has a really big scar, Lily whispered. On his chin. He's kind of scary. Is he being nice to you? He gave me a granola bar. Then he's one of the good guys, Clara said and almost believed it entirely. I need you to stay calm. Okay, you're almost here. I'm going to see you in a few minutes. Okay. A pause. Mama, is Daddy going to be mad? The question hit her like something physical. Is Daddy going to be mad? 7 years old and already calibrated to that question, already running that calculation, already measuring the temperature of the room from a distance. Clara recognized it because she had done the same thing for 6 years, every single day. Daddy's not your problem, she said, and she made her voice as certain as she knew how to make it. He is not your problem, Lily. Not tonight. Not ever again. You hear me? Silence. Then okay, Mama. I'll see you soon. Give the phone back to the man with the scar. Caruso came back on the line. Yeah. How far out are you? 6 minutes. There may be a situation at the estate when you arrive, she said, keeping her voice absolutely level. I need you to bring her in through the back, the kitchen entrance. Maria will be there. She was already texting Maria as she said it. Got it, Caruso said and hung up. She sent the text to Maria. Maria responded in 11 seconds with a single word, ready. Clara got up off the floor. She moved to the desk because standing in the center of the room with nothing to hold on to was not something she could sustain, and she pressed both palms flat against the surface and thought. Derek was coming here with 4 men. Derek was coming here because he knew he had put it together the questions Tommy had been asking, the fact that Lily's tablet had come online, the timing of Clara's call this morning, something or some combination of things. And he had decided that offense was his best move. He was going to come here and do what he always did when he felt cornered. He was going to try to make everything someone else's problem by making it everyone's nightmare. She knew how he thought. 6 years. She knew exactly how he thought. And she was possibly, for the first time in their entire history, in a position where that knowledge was an advantage instead of a vulnerability. Her phone buzzed. Tommy's number, he had given it to her this morning, and she had saved it immediately. She answered. Derek's car just turned onto Lakeshore, Tommy said without greeting. He's not trying to hide, coming straight at us. I know, she said. He does that when he's scared. He goes forward. A pause. That's helpful. You sure? I lived with him for 6 years. Right. She could hear something in the background voice movement. Boss wants to know, does he carry always left side in one of his ankles? Another pause longer. Okay, stay locked in. He hung up. She stood at the desk and breathed, in and out, slow and deliberate, the way she had taught herself to breathe in the bad years, when breathing slowly was the only control she had over anything. 5 minutes. The house was very loud now, and then abruptly it was very quiet, and the quality of that quiet was different from any quiet she had heard here before. It was the quiet of readiness, the quiet of things being in position. She heard a car in the drive, then voices, one of them raised, one of them not. She couldn't make out words through the door and the walls, only the shape of them, the texture. She realized she was gripping the edge of the desk hard enough to hurt. She let go, and then she heard from somewhere below and behind the house a door, the kitchen door, and a voice, high piping, the kind of voice that cuts through everything because your body is designed to respond to it. Mama, Clara was at the office door before the thought was complete. She unlocked it, pulled it open, went into the hallway, and there at the far end, being half carried by Maria, who was making the specific sounds that large, formidable women make when they are trying not to cry, was Lily. Messy hair, wrinkled shirt, one shoe untied. The most beautiful thing Clara had ever seen. She crossed the hallway in a time she could not have measured, and then Lily was in her arms, solid and warm and real, her small hands gripping the back of Clara's uniform jacket, with the particular ferocity of a child who understands on some animal level that something important just happened. I've got you, Clara said into her harem. I've got you. I've got you. I hid the tablet really good, Lily said into her shoulder, under the mattress like you always say to do with important things. You were so smart. Clara was crying and she had given up on trying not to. You were so brave. The man said I was a tough kid. A pause. He said I should have bit Derek instead of him, but I told him I bit him by accident. Maria made a sound. Clara looked up, and the older woman's face was doing exactly what she'd known it would be, doing full and complicated and not entirely held together. Come on, baby, Clara said, pulling back and taking Lily's face in both hands, memorizing it, checking it, making sure she was real and whole and unhurt. We're going somewhere safe for right now, okay? And then I need you to stay with Maria for a little while. Lily looked at Maria. Maria smiled at her, the kind of smile that didn't need to be manufactured. Do you like grilled cheese? Maria asked. I like it with tomato, Lily said seriously. Then you and I are going to be just fine, Maria said. Clara straightened up. She looked at Maria and said quietly, don't bring her near the front of the house. And if you hear anything, I've worked for this family for 19 years, Maria said in the tone of a woman who has seen things and managed them. I know what to do. Clara believed her. She let Maria take Lily toward the kitchen, and she watched them go, and she felt the specific terror of walking back toward the front of the house alone without her daughter in her arms and doing it anyway. The voices were clearer now. She could hear Derek. She would always be able to pick his voice out of any crowd, not because she wanted to, but because her nervous system had spent 6 years learning it as a threat signal. The same way you learn not to touch a hot stove, not because anyone teaches you, because the lesson writes itself into you. He was in the entrance hall. She knew because of the acoustics the way his voice bounced differently than it would in any other room. She came down the stairs. Vincent was standing near the entrance, not at the door, not backed against anything, but planted in the middle of the space with the particular stillness of a man who is at home anywhere and needs no wall at his back. Tommy was slightly to his right. Two others flanked them at the edges. Derek was facing them. He looked exactly the same as he always looked. That was the strangest part, the part that always got her even after everything. He looked like a completely ordinary man. Average height, good-looking, in a generic, uncomplicated way, the kind of face that photographs well at company picnics. The kind of face that makes people say later, but he seemed so normal. He had two men with him inside. The other two were presumably outside or had been handled because Vincent's people were very good at their jobs. Derek saw her the moment she appeared at the bottom of the stairs. His expression changed, just slightly, just enough. "Clara," he said, and there was the warm voice still there, still deployed even now. "I was worried about you." "No, you weren't," she said. "I've been coming to talk to Vincent here man to man." "My name," Vincent said, and his voice was quiet and glacial, "is Mr. Romano, to you." Derek looked at him. Something flickered behind his eyes, the quick recalculation of a man who has just taken a full measure of who he's standing in front of and found it more than he expected. "Mr. Romano," Derek said smoothly, pivoting without missing a beat, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Clara and I have some ongoing family matters, our daughter, and I think things have gotten confused. I came here as a courtesy to clear things up directly." "You came here with 4 armed men," Vincent said. "I came here because I didn't know what kind of welcome I'd get." Derek spread his hands open, reasonable, the perfect performance of a man who has nothing to hide. "I'm not looking for trouble. I just want to talk." "Where's my daughter?" Clara said. Derek looked at her. The warmth in his face shifted fractionally, barely perceptibly, but she knew how to read the fractions. "She's safe," he said. "She's been with me all week. I have a legal right to..." "She's not with you," Clara said, "and you know she's not with you." A silence. Derek's expression did something complicated. He looked from Clara to Vincent and back to Clara, and she could watch the calculations running behind his eyes, could see him restructuring in real time. "You had someone take her," he said, and the warm voice was gone now, just like that. 15 years of knowing him, and she still found the speed of it, startling how fast the friendly man could vacate the premises and leave someone else standing in his place. "She's with her mother," Vincent said, "which is where she should have been all week." "You had no right," Derek started. "I had every right," Vincent said. "She works in my house. Her child was taken. That makes it my business." "You don't know what you've gotten yourself into," Derek said. And there it was, the other voice, the real one, the one that lived underneath all the warmth and reasonableness, flat and cold and certain of itself. "This isn't your fight, Romano. You should have stayed out of it." "And yet," Vincent said, "here we are." Derek looked at him for a long moment, long enough that the silence became uncomfortable for everyone in the room, except apparently Vincent, who seemed prepared to stand there until the end of time. "Paul Stein is going to hear about this," Derek said. "I'm counting on it," Vincent said. Something in Derek's face changed again. He'd expected that to land differently. He'd expected the name to produce something, anxiety recalibration, some signal of concern. The fact that it produced nothing that Vincent said, "I'm counting on it," the way you'd say, "I take my waffy black," that unsettled him. Clara could see it. Paul Stein runs a card game," Vincent said. "Don't embarrass yourself." It was the tone more than the words. Not contemptuous contempt would have given Derek something to react to. This was something worse, indifference. Vincent Romano regarded Paul Stein as neither a threat nor an inconvenience, but simply as an irrelevant fact about the world. And he stated it in exactly that tone, and Clara watched it hit Derek like a door closing in his face. Derek's jaw tightened. "I want my daughter." "No," Vincent said simply. "She is legally..." "Your custody arrangement," Vincent said, "was suspended 3 months ago by a court in Cook County after your second violation of the original agreement. I have a copy of the order." He paused. "Tommy has a copy. My attorney has a copy." Another pause. "You don't have legal access to that child. What you did this week is called kidnapping. You understand that?" Derek was very still. So here is what's going to happen, Vincent continued in the same measured, unhurried voice, as though he were explaining something simple to someone slow. You and your men are going to leave this property. You are going to go back to wherever Paul Stein has you staying, and you are going to explain to him that this particular adventure is over. And then you are going to stay as far from Clara Vance and her daughter as this city permits. Derek stared at him. Or what? The question was a mistake. Clara knew it the moment it came out of Derek's mouth because she could see in Vincent's face that he had been waiting for exactly that question, that everything up to this point had been a runway leading to exactly this moment. Vincent said, I have a conversation with Paul Stein that you will not enjoy the consequences of. And then I have a separate conversation with a friend of mine in the state's attorney's office about certain events that occurred this week. He tilted his head slightly. You have a prior conviction, Mr. Vance. A second felony in this state is not something I would recommend. The room was completely silent. Derek looked at Clara, and she made herself hold his gaze, which was one of the hardest things she had done in recent memory, because Derek's gaze had been a weapon used against her for a long time, and every old reflex was telling her to look away. She didn't look away. She looked at him steadily, and she thought about Lily's hands gripping the back of her jacket on the stairs, and she stayed exactly where she was. Something shifted in Derek's face. It wasn't defeat. She didn't think she'd ever see actual defeat on his face, because men like Derek always believed the game was still on, always believed there was another angle they hadn't tried yet. What it was she thought was the specific recalibration of a man who has decided this particular battle isn't worth what it's going to. He was not done, she knew that. She would be realistic about that for the rest of her life. Men like Derek were never done, but he was done tonight. This isn't over, he said. He said it to Clara, not to Vincent. Yes, it is, she said. And she meant it even knowing that meaning something and making it true were two different things. Derek looked at her for one more moment. Then he looked at Vincent. Something passed across his face, calculation, resentment, the particular sourness of a man who has overplayed his hand and knows it. Then he nodded to his two men and turned and walked to the door. Tommy opened it for him with a courtesy so precisely calibrated to be insulting that Clara almost would have admired it in a different moment. The door closed. The entrance hall was very quiet. Clara realized her knees were shaking. She pressed her feet more firmly into the floor and locked her knees and did not let herself shake visibly. Vincent turned to look at her. His expression was not triumphant. It was not satisfied. It was something quieter than both of those things. You okay? He asked. He'll come back, she said. Not tonight, but I know. He said it simply. That's why this doesn't end tonight. What does that mean? He looked at her steadily. It means that Paul Stein and I are going to have the conversation I described. And it means that Derek Vance's prior conviction is about to become significantly more complicated for him, legally speaking. He paused. It's better that you don't know the specifics. Is what you're going to do legal? Some of it, he said. She looked at him, he looked at her, and despite everything, despite the last 4 days, despite the shaking in her knees, despite the fact that she was standing in the entrance hall of a Mafia boss's home, having just watched her ex-husband get quietly destroyed by a man she had been afraid of 11 months ago, she felt something almost like steadiness returning. Mama, from somewhere behind her. Small voice slightly muffled by the fact that Lily was apparently eating a grilled cheese while she called for her mother. Clara turned around. Lily was at the end of the hallway, Maria hovering behind her with a plate looking between Clara and Vincent, with the frank, merciless curiosity of a 7-year-old who has decided that this man is interesting. Is this your boss? Lily asked Clara. Yes, Clara said. Lily looked at Vincent with the kind of thorough, unself-conscious scrutiny that only children and very honest adults can manage. Maria said you have a dog. Vincent looked at Clara. Clara looked at the floor briefly and then back up because she had promised herself she was done looking at the floor. My driver has a toy, Vincent said to Lily, grave and direct the way he said everything. A retriever. His name is Buck. Can I meet him? Lily, Clara started. Yes, Vincent said. Lily's face did the thing that 7-year-old faces do when something genuinely wonderful happens, lit up from the inside, completely unguarded, the purest form of happiness that exists on earth. Clara looked at Vincent over her daughter's head. He was watching Lily with an expression she had never seen on his face before. It was soft in a way that should have seemed out of place on those particular features, and somehow wasn't. It looked, she thought, like a man who had been carrying something heavy for a very long time and had just briefly put it down. "Thank you," Clara said quietly. He looked at her. "Go be with your daughter." She went. Lily took her hand the moment she got close enough, that immediate instinctive grip, and Clara held on just as hard. Maria went back toward the kitchen, muttering something about warming up soup, and Clara let Lily pull her down the hallway away from the entrance hall, away from the weight of the last 4 days. "Mama," Lily said as they walked, "that man is really tall." "He is. Is he nice?" Clara thought about that. She thought about a bruise on her face in a mirror at 5 in the morning. She thought about a voice saying, "Who did this to you?" like the answer was the only thing that mattered. She thought about, "I'm counting on it," perfectly level, perfectly calm, the most protected she had felt in 3 years, and in a way that felt real and not like something she needed to be afraid of. "Yeah," she said, "he's nice." Lily considered this. "He doesn't look nice." "No," Clara agreed, "he doesn't. But he said I could meet the dog." "That's true." "So," Lily said with the conclusive logic of someone for whom the world still made simple sense, "he's nice." Clara pulled her daughter close and pressed her lips to the top of her head and held on. Outside, somewhere in the city, Derek was in a car going somewhere, recalculating, rebuilding, doing the thing he always did. And for the first time in 3 years, Clara found that she was less afraid of what came next than she was certain about one thing: she was not going to face it alone. That was new. That was everything. 3 days after Derek walked out of the Romano estate, the city was quiet in the way that cities get quiet right before something breaks. Clara felt it. She had learned over the course of her life to read quiet the way other people read weather, not by what was there, but by what was conspicuously absent. Derek had not called, he had not texted, he had not sent anyone to her building, which Marco confirmed every morning with a single nod when he picked her up. No activity, no contact, nothing, which was exactly the thing that frightened her most. Derek's silence was never empty. It was always full of something being built. Lily was at Renee's in Evanston, which had been Clara's first decision the morning after everything happened, and her clearest one. Lily had cried about the dog, Buck, Marco's retriever, who had in fact been brought to the estate the morning after, and had sat with Lily for 2 hours with his enormous head in her lap while she watched cartoons. Leaving Buck was, according to Lily, the hardest part of all of this. Clara had filed that away as evidence that her daughter was going to be absolutely fine. She went to work every day. She kept her routines. She folded the linens and helped Maria and moved through the house the way she always had, except that it wasn't the way she always had, not exactly, because something had permanently shifted in the architecture of this place that related to her. She felt it in small things. Sal held a door for her. Tommy, who communicated primarily through monosyllables and meaningful silences, had taken to leaving a coffee on the kitchen counter at the specific time she arrived every morning, with the exact amount of sugar she used without comment or acknowledgement. Maria had started saving her a plate when she was busy at lunch. She didn't know how to hold it. It felt uncomfortably like being seen, like the particular exposure of having people know that you had been through something and having them choose quietly and without discussion to stand slightly closer. Vincent, for his part, had said almost nothing to her since that night. Not cold, that wasn't it. He was not cold toward her. He spoke to her when they crossed paths, asked her occasionally if she needed anything, once stopped at the kitchen doorway when she was helping Maria and asked with his usual directness whether Lily had settled in at Renee's. But the longer conversations, the ones that had happened in his office over those 3 days, those had stopped. He was giving her space, she thought, or he was busy, or both. She told herself it didn't matter. She was a grown woman. She didn't need to be checked on. She checked his office door more than was strictly necessary. On the 4th morning, Tommy found her in the hallway with an expression she had learned to read as, "There is something you need to know, and I have been designated to tell you." "Derek Vance turned himself in last night," Tommy said. Clara went very still. "Turned himself in. State's Attorney's Office, 11:15 p.m. His attorney negotiated the terms." Tommy was watching her carefully. "He's facing charges for the custody violation. Kidnapping technically. The prior conviction makes it complicated for him." "Whose attorney negotiated the terms?" she asked. Tommy's expression did not change. Derek's attorney. Clara looked at him. Tommy Baum, she said, whose attorney negotiated Derek's attorney's position. A pause long enough to be an answer. That's not something I have information about, Tommy said, and turned and walked away with the particular dignity of a man who is very good at not saying things. She stood in the hallway for a moment. Then she went to the office door and knocked. Come in, Vincent said. He was at his desk actually working this time papers in front of him, reading glasses she had never seen before sitting on the edge of his nose. He pulled them off when she entered, which she found against her will completely human and unexpectedly endearing. You turned Derek in, she said. He set the glasses on the desk. Derek turned Derek in. Vincent. Clara. She looked at him. He looked at her. The standoff lasted approximately 5 seconds. My attorney, he said, may have had a conversation with Derek's attorney about the relative merits of voluntary surrender versus the alternative. And Derek's attorney may have agreed that the former was significantly preferable for his client's long-term well-being. He paused. That's all I can tell you. What does voluntary surrender mean for him, for the charges? It means he cooperated, Vincent said, which means the state's attorney is inclined to recommend a lighter sentence, 18 months possibly less with good behavior. He held her gaze. But it also means he accepted a formal agreement as part of the surrender. Permanent termination of parental rights pending Lily's consent when she reaches the appropriate age. He paused. And a restraining order that has considerably more teeth than the last 3. Clara sat down without being invited. She sat down because her legs made that decision again. He agreed to that, she said. He voluntarily gave up his parental rights. Men like Derek, Vincent said carefully, make different decisions when the alternative is presented clearly enough. She didn't ask what the alternative had been. She understood somewhere in the part of her that had adapted over 11 months to understanding how this house worked, that some things were better left in the space between words. Is it binding? She asked instead. Legally, formally, is it? My attorney drafted it. It is the most binding document that the state of Illinois can produce. He picked up a folder from the corner of the desk and held it out to her. You should have your own attorney review it. But yes, it's binding. She took the folder. She looked at it. She thought about Lily at Renee's, probably at this moment engaged in some fierce negotiation about screen time, entirely unaware that the specific shape of her future had just been altered irrevocably towards something better. I don't know how to, she stopped. There isn't a version of thank you that covers this. Then don't look for one, he said. She looked up at him. He was watching her with that expression she had come to associate with Vincent Romano when he had decided something and was not going to discuss it further, not closed off, just settled, complete. I need to ask you something, she said. Go ahead. What do you want from me? The question landed in the room and stayed there. Vincent looked at her steadily, and she held his gaze, and she made herself mean. The question exactly as she'd asked it, not accusatory, not suspicious, but honest. She needed to know. She had been someone else's means to an end for 6 years, and she could not afford to misread this, to let gratitude make her blind to something she should be seeing clearly. What do I want from you? He repeated. Not a question, turning it over. You've spent significant resources on my situation, she said. Your time, your people, your attorney, your whatever conversation happened with Derek. I'm your maid, Vincent. I need to understand what this costs me. He was quiet for a long moment. Nothing, he said. That's not an answer. It is an answer, he said. It's just not the one you're used to getting from men who do things for you. He let that sit. I don't want anything from you, Clara. You don't owe me anything. You can walk out of this house tomorrow and take another job, and I will make sure the legal situation with Derek remains handled. There are no strings. She studied him. She studied him the way she should have studied people years ago before she got out of practice, looking for the gap between what a person said and what they meant, the slight misalignment. She didn't find one. Okay, she said. Okay, ahoyaki. I believe you. Something in his face shifted, just slightly, just enough. Good, he said. She stood. She still had the folder in her hands. She looked down at it, this document that represented Derek's permanent exit from her life, or as close to permanent as anything human could be, and then she looked back at him. I'm not going to leave, she said. I like this job. I like Maria. Sal has been leaving me coffee, which I think means we're friends, and I don't want to give that up. The corner of Vincent's mouth moved. Not quite a smile, but adjacent. Sal would be devastated, he said. I know. She moved toward the door. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 6:15. 6, he said. She stopped. 6 is earlier than my shift. I know. Maria makes breakfast at 6 on Fridays. She'll be upset if you miss it. Clara looked at him over her shoulder. Does Maria make breakfast at 6 on Fridays? Vincent looked at his papers. She does now. Clara walked out of the office. She made it to the end of the hallway before she did the thing she'd promised herself she wasn't going to do, which was smile. She smiled anyway. The thing about surviving something is that it doesn't announce itself. There's no morning you wake up and find a clean line between the before and the after. What happens instead is smaller than that and more real. You catch yourself making coffee without dreading the sound of footsteps behind you. You answer your phone without looking at the number first and bracing. You book a dentist appointment and realize it's the first time in 4 years you've thought that far ahead without it feeling presumptuous. Clara had 3 of those moments in the week that followed, and she counted them the way people count things that matter. She went to Evanston on Saturday and got Lily. The reunion involved Lily talking continuously for 45 minutes about Buck the Retriever, and also about a game she'd played with Renee's kids, and also tangentially about a sandwich she'd eaten that had too much mustard and how she felt about mustard as a concept. Clara drove and listened and felt something in her chest, slowly, carefully, like a hand, unclenching, begin to let go. Lily asked about Vincent on the way home. Is your boss still around? She asked from the back seat. He lives there, baby. I work there. Does he know I said thank you? Clara glanced in the rearview mirror. Did you want me to tell him? Lily considered this with the gravity of someone making an important diplomatic decision. Yeah, tell him thank you for Buck, and also for the stuff I don't know about. Renee told me there was stuff I don't know about. Renee told you that? She said grown-up stuff happened. She said Vincent was... Lily paused, working it out. She said he was good people. Clara looked at the road ahead. Renee's right, she said. Is he your friend now? The word friend sat there in the car between them, small and imprecise, and wildly inadequate for the actual thing, and Clara thought about how to answer, and decided on something that was true without being more than a 7-year-old needed to carry. Yeah, she said. He's my friend. What she did not tell Lily, because she was still working it out for herself, was this, that there was a difference between the person you were before something broke you and the person you were after you put yourself back together. Not worse necessarily, not even smaller, just different, shaped by what had happened, carrying the mark of it, but not defined by it. Not anymore. She had been Clara who survived Derek for 3 years. She had worn that identity like a second skin, had organized her whole life around the careful work of not being hurt again. And that had been necessary. She didn't regret it, but it was done now. She was just Clara. She was still figuring out what that looked like. On Tuesday of the following week, Tommy knocked on the doorframe of the linen room where she was working and said without ceremony, "Boss wants you." She had been summoned to the office enough times now that it no longer produced the cold water feeling it used to. She went, knocked, entered. Vincent was standing at the window. He turned when she came in. "Paul Stein came to see me this morning," he said. Her stomach tightened. "And he came to apologize," Vincent said. And the particular flatness of how he said it told her everything about how that meeting had gone. He claims he didn't know Derek's method of acquiring information. He claims he had no idea a child was involved. Do you believe him? No, Vincent said simply, but it doesn't matter what I believe. What matters is that Stein understands the situation going forward. He does. A pause. He also provided documentation on 3 individuals in his organization who were directly involved in planning the approach to this house last week. What does that mean for those 3 people? They're no longer in Chicago, Vincent said. She did not ask more than that. So it's done, she said instead. Stein is done. Derek is facing charges. The agreement holds. He looked at her. For all practical purposes, yes, it's done. Clara had imagined this moment in the abstract during the bad nights of the last 3 years. The moment when she could say with honest certainty that Derek Vance was no longer the architecture of her life. She had imagined feeling something large relief or triumph, or the particular release of a pressure so long held that you'd forgotten what it felt like to breathe without it. What she actually felt was quieter than that, fuller, like something resolving into its right shape after a long time in the wrong one. Okay, she said. Then Vincent. He looked at her. I need you to know something, she said. I came to work here 11 months ago because I needed the job. I stayed because the job was good and I was good at it. I didn't come here looking for, she stopped, found the right word, for anyone to rescue me. I want you to know that. I'm not going to spend the rest of my working life being grateful in a way that makes me smaller. I'm not built like that, not anymore. Vincent looked at her for a long moment. I know, he said. I just wanted to say it out loud. Good, he said. Say things out loud. It's more efficient. That sounds like something you live by. I do. He moved back toward his desk. I also live by the principle that people who are good at their tasks should be compensated accordingly. I've spoken to my accountant. Your salary is being adjusted effective this week. He sat. 15%. And full benefits if you weren't already on them, which I've discovered you weren't, which is an oversight I'm correcting. Clara stared at him. You're giving me a raise. I'm correcting a disparity. Because you've worked here for 11 months, you're excellent at what you do, and I should have looked at the numbers sooner. He picked up his glasses. Is there anything else? She looked at him, reading glasses perched back on his nose, papers in front of him, every inch the impossibly controlled man who ran one of the most dangerous operations in the city, and who also apparently felt strongly about correcting payroll disparities. Lily wants me to tell you thank you, she said, for Buck, and for the stuff she doesn't know about. Vincent's hands paused on the papers. He looked at her over the top of his glasses. Tell her she's welcome, he said, and tell her Marco said Buck can come by again on Saturday if she wants. She's going to lose her mind, Clara said. I'm aware, he said. Maria is also going to make pancakes, blueberry. Clara stood at the door of his office and looked at Vincent Romano, who had remembered from a single sentence spoken in the worst moment of her life that her daughter's favorite food was blueberry pancakes and had made sure they would be ready. She thought about what Lily had said in the car. He's good people, 7 years old and completely absolutely right. I'll see you tomorrow, she said. 6 o'clock, he said. 6 o'clock, she agreed. She walked down the hallway and down the stairs and through the house that had been 11 months ago, a place she navigated with her eyes down and her presence minimized and her whole self organized around being unnoticed. She walked through it differently now. Not like she owned it, not like anything had been given to her that wasn't hers, but like a person who had earned her place in a room, like a woman who had come through something that should have broken her and discovered on the other side of it that she was still standing. Still standing, still here. Her daughter safe, her future open in a way it hadn't been in years. She got her coat from the hook by the kitchen, said goodnight to Maria, who pressed a container of leftover soup into her hands with the silent authority of someone for whom feeding people is a form of love, and walked to the front entrance where Marco was already waiting. He held the door. She stepped out. The night air hit her face cold and real and clean, and Clara Vance walked to the car, got in, and went home. Not running, not hiding, not managing the distance between herself and the next threat. Just going home. Like a woman who had finally, after a very long time, decided that she was allowed to. That was the beginning of something, and she was ready for it.